Let me set the scene for you. The Interstellar Combat Academy, a gleaming monument to species who evolved on worlds so safe you could nap in a field of predators, and wake up mildly annoyed instead of digested. Every cadet here came from a planet with a name like Vesserine or the Los Prime, worlds with regulated weather, zero apex predators, and HOA committees that governed gravity fluctuations. Naturally, they were very good at combat theory, footwork drills, and looking fabulous doing katas in 0G. And then there was Marcus Okoye. Human. Sole representative of Earth. Currently asleep in the back row of advanced tactical philosophy with a data pad stuck to his face. The instructors had long since stopped waking him up. What was the point? He aced every written exam without studying, dozed through every lecture, and in sparring drills moved with all the urgency of a man waiting for a bus that was already late. The other cadets called him the pillow species. Soft. Slow. Harmless. A punchline with a cafeteria card. Technically, Earth was filed under class Deathworld Origin, a classification that was supposed to mean something terrifying. Nobody took it seriously. You try taking a species seriously when its sole ambassador falls asleep during a lecture on plasma blade counters and snores loud enough to trigger the fire alarm. The narrator, that's me, don't worry about it, would like to point out that this is the part of the story where everyone's confidence is about to become extremely, hilariously misplaced. Cadet Threxel Vorn was, by any metric the Academy cared about, a monster. 7 feet of corded muscle from a heavy gravity world where the local wildlife bench pressed boulders for fun. Top of the combat leaderboard 3 semesters running. Threxel walked like he already knew he'd won whatever fight was about to happen, because so far, he always had. He'd also made it a personal hobby to make Mac's life miserable. Pillow, Threxel said one morning, shoving past Mac's tray in the mess hall, your species evolved to nap and complain about work emails. Explain to me again why the Academy accepted you. Around them, the usual crowd gathered. Illyra Set, a lean 4-armed cadet from a species that communicated partly through bioluminescent sarcasm, Duque-Tan, built like a friendly tank and twice as gullible, and Vex 9, a synthetic exchange cadet who mostly just wanted everyone to stop yelling so she could finish her calculations in peace. Mac didn't look up from his noodles. Beats me. Maybe they needed someone to make you feel tall. The mess hall did the thing crowds do when they smell a fight brewing. Half of them laughed, half of them gasped, and Threxel's jaw did that little twitch that meant he was recalculating how much he hated this specific human. One day, Threxel said, you'll be paired against someone who matters. And Academy or not, I will enjoy watching you fold. Can't wait, Mac said. Circle it on your calendar. Bring snacks. Of course, the universe, or in this case, the Academy's events coordinator, who clearly needed better hobbies, decided to make that day arrive early. Grandmaster Ovash announced it during morning assembly, a mandatory exhibition match, top-ranked cadet versus lowest-ranked cadet, staged as cultural morale entertainment for a group of visiting alien dignitaries touring the Academy's combat program. Because nothing says diplomacy like scheduled humiliation. The pairing appeared on the main screen a moment later. Threxel Vorn versus Marcus Okoye. The assembly hall erupted into laughter so loud it startled the ceiling lights. Betting pools opened before the echo even died down. By lunch, the odds against Mac were so lopsided that the Academy's gambling terminal actually flagged the bet as statistically pointless and asked users to confirm they really wanted to throw their credits away. Illyra sidled up to Mac at his locker, bioluminescent patches flickering with something between pity and amusement. You could forfeit, she offered. Nobody would blame you. Threxel could probably fold you into a briefcase. Appreciate the vote of confidence, Mac said, not looking especially bothered. I'm serious. He trains 4 hours a day. He benches a small moon. Good for him, Mac said, closing his locker. I'm gonna go take a nap. Illyra watched him go, genuinely unsure whether she'd just witnessed supreme confidence or a complete failure to understand the concept of danger. In hindsight, and I do love hindsight, it's my favorite narrative tool, it was neither. It was just a man who'd already met scarier things than Threxel before breakfast, on a regular Tuesday, back on Earth. The night before the match, most cadets assumed Mac was either panicking quietly or blissfully unaware of his impending doom. In reality, he was in the empty training gym at 0300, humming an old Earth song under his breath while doing slow, unhurried stretches. He wasn't loading up on adrenaline. He wasn't visualizing victory. He was just calm. The kind of calm that doesn't come from confidence, but from calibration, from having once had to calmly climb a tree while something with too many teeth reconsidered its life choices below him. From spending a summer where the biggest danger wasn't an enemy combatant, but the weather report. Earth didn't hand out participation trophies for surviving a hurricane. It handed out humility, and Mac had apparently absorbed an unusual amount of it. Around 0400, he wandered to the cafeteria and ordered noodles from the replicator, extra spicy, Earth recipe, uploaded from his personal files. 2 tables over, a Vesserine exchange student took one curious bite off Mac's tray when he stepped away, and within 4 seconds was drinking directly from the water dispenser while making a sound like a kettle achieving consciousness. "It's not that spicy," Mac said, returning to reclaim his tray. The Vesserine stared at him with the deep, wounded betrayal of a species that had never met a Scotch bonnet pepper. "Your planet tried to kill me." "Yeah," Mac said, sitting back down. "Mine does that." The arena the next day was packed. Dignitaries from 3 allied systems sat in the reserved box, sipping ceremonial space tea, here to observe the Academy's combat excellence. Instructors lined the walls. Betting screens glowed with odds so tilted against Mac that the number had basically become a running joke printed on a t-shirt someone was already selling by the concession stand. Threxel entered first, to cheers, flexing for the cameras, clearly enjoying every second of being the main event. Mac walked in a minute later, hands in his pockets, looking like a man who'd wandered into the wrong building and was too polite to leave. "Any last words, Pillow?" Threxel said, rolling his shoulders. Mac considered this. "Yeah. Try not to cry in front of the dignitaries." Threxel laughed, a big, booming, genuinely delighted laugh, the laugh of someone who has never once considered the possibility that the joke is on him. The gong rang. The crowd roared. And Threxel, confident, fast, and absolutely sure this would be over in 3 seconds, charged. Here's the thing about that moment that I need you to really sit with, everyone in that arena expected 3 seconds. They got considerably fewer. Threxel closed the distance in a blink, telegraphing nothing, throwing a full-body haymaker that had ended matches, and, allegedly, one unfortunate training dummy's structural integrity, in the past. It was fast. It was heavy. It was, by every metric the Academy taught, a knockout blow. Mac didn't dodge. He didn't need to. He shifted his weight maybe 6 inches, let the punch pass close enough to ruffle his hair, and threw one shot, a short, controlled, almost lazy-looking punch, into the center of Threxel's chest. The sound was wrong. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just a flat, heavy thud, like a door slamming somewhere 3 rooms away. Threxel's eyes rolled back. His knees folded like a Vesserine's confidence in the face of Earth cuisine, and 7 feet of heavy gravity muscle hit the mat and did not get back up. The arena went dead silent. Somewhere in the dignitary box, a ceremonial cup of space tea slipped from someone's grip and shattered on the floor, the sound echoing obscenely loud in the void where cheering used to be. The betting screens, still displaying odds designed by a machine that had clearly never met a human, flickered uselessly. Mac stood there, shaking out his hand like he'd stubbed a toe. "Ow," he said, to absolutely nobody. "Okay, that hurt a little." What followed can only be described as controlled academic panic. Instructors sprinted onto the mat. Medical staff scanned Threxel, who was very much alive, just very much unconscious, with readings that made the head physician say a word that translated roughly to, "that shouldn't be possible," in 6 different languages. Someone pulled Mac's biometric readout from the match, heart rate barely above resting, exertion levels lower than what most cadets registered during a light jog. 1 punch. Barely elevated pulse. The instructors stared at the numbers the way you'd stare at a parking ticket written in a language that doesn't exist yet. Grandmaster Ovash, to his credit, recovered fastest. He pulled up Mac's file, the class Deathworld origin classification everyone had treated as a punchline for 2 semesters, and this time actually read past the header. What followed was a redacted, heavily summarized, still somehow terrifying list: survivable gravitational range, exposure tolerances, documented predator encounters, extreme weather survival statistics, something involving seasonal migratory apex predators, that made 2 dignitaries visibly lean away from their tea. "He's been holding back," Ovash said slowly, staring at the readout. "This entire semester. He's been holding back." Illyra, watching from the stands with her bioluminescent patches flickering rapid, alarmed patterns, turned to Duquesne. "He fell asleep in tactical philosophy." "I know," Duquesne said, wide-eyed. "He complained the noodles weren't spicy enough." "I know." Vex 9, ever the pragmatist, simply updated a spreadsheet titled Threat Reassessment, Human, Marcus, and moved it to a much higher priority folder. They pulled Mac aside for the mandatory post-match interview, still standing on the mat, still absently flexing his sore hand. The dignitaries leaned in. The cameras leaned in. The entire academy, frankly, leaned in. "Cadet Okoye," the interviewer said, voice slightly unsteady, "can you explain what just happened?" Mac shrugged. "I hit him. He fell down." "That was, approximately 10% of your recorded strength output, according to preliminary analysis." "Yeah, probably," Mac said. "Didn't want to get banned from the cafeteria for property damage." A ripple of nervous laughter went through the crowd, the kind of laughter that isn't sure yet if it's allowed to exist. "Your species classification lists you as originating from a death world," the interviewer continued. "Could you elaborate?" Mac considered this for a moment, then leaned toward the microphone with the weary patience of a man who has explained this before and will have to explain it again. "Earth's got mosquitoes that carry 6 different diseases and consider your blood a light snack. We've got storms that erase entire coastlines for fun. Gravity's nothing special, but the wildlife didn't get the memo that we're supposed to be at the top of the food chain. We just won that argument the hard way, repeatedly, for a very long time. And don't get me started on Mondays." He paused. "Threxel hits hard. I'll give him that. But he's never had a heat wave try to kill him for a whole summer while his power grid failed." So. Context. Somewhere in the dignitary box, someone quietly asked an aide to look up what a mosquito was, then immediately regretted it. By the end of the week, the Academy had quietly, thoroughly reclassified its entire human combat threat assessment. Instructors who used to ignore Mac now watched him with the wary respect usually reserved for unstable chemical compounds. Cadets who'd never spoken to him suddenly wanted to be his sparring partner, his study buddy, his best friend, his emergency contact. Threxel, once he woke up and got over the very reasonable bruise to both his sternum and his ego, did the surprisingly mature thing: he sought Mac out, not for a rematch, but for training. "Teach me that punch," he said, arms crossed, doing his best to look like this request cost him nothing. It clearly cost him everything. "It's not really a technique," Mac said. "It's mostly just, not holding back at the wrong moment." That is the least helpful sentence I have ever heard. "Yeah," Mac agreed. "Welcome to Earth wisdom." They ended up training together twice a week after that, an arrangement that satisfied Threxel's pride by technically not being a loss and satisfied Mac by giving him someone to talk to who wouldn't fall asleep faster than he would. The story of the fight spread across every academy branch in the sector within a month, growing more absurd with each retelling. By the third relay, Mac had reportedly punched Threxel into low orbit. By the fifth, he'd done it while asleep. Mac never bothered correcting any of it. Honestly, it was funnier that way. So here's where we leave things. One very tired human, still napping through tactical philosophy, still ordering catastrophically spicy noodles, still treated by the galaxy as this year's most terrifying rumor, wearing a very unbothered face. Next semester, apparently, the Academy's adding a new elective, Xenobiology of Known Deathworlds. Rumor has it Mac's been asked to guest lecture. He already said he'll probably fall asleep halfway through. Nobody's betting against that one either.